Good morning everyone, and welcome to this reflection coming from Killin Parish Manse. The light of the world has come. Jesus is the light of the world. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness will never overcome it. Amen. I was reminded recently of a story I first heard in the 1970s. And it was about an ex-American Marine called Leroy Imes, who served during the Second World War. In 1944, he was involved in the invasion of the island Peleliu, which was a very, very difficult battle. The Marines lost 60% casualties in 8 days. He was only 19 at the time, and one of the other Marines was severely wounded and obviously dying, and asked Leroy if he could tell him about God. And Leroy Imes didn't know what to say because he didn't know anything about God. And then he asked him if he would pray, say a prayer for him. And again, he didn't know how to pray. So he grabbed some of the other Marines as the bullets were flying and said, "Do you know how to pray?" And he was told where to go in no uncertain terms. And he was left with the dying Marine, and the Marine died looking at him straight in the eyes. But then survival instincts took over because the bullets were flying at the time, and Leroy Imes managed to survive that battle. It wasn't till later on, after the war was over, he reflected long and hard on that experience. "Tell me about God," said the dying Marine. "Pray for me, say a prayer for me." What would we do if we came across someone in that situation? It could happen to any of us. Walking along the road and there's a serious accident and someone is really, really badly injured. They feel they're dying and they say to us, "Tell us about God." What do we know? What do we believe? What do we say? Or say a prayer for us? Are we capable of that? Now, I know this is what ministers do. We tell stories that are quite dramatic. They're not every day. But you know, each and every one of us can be caught up in something that is dramatic. And the resources we draw on in these situations are nurtured in the normal everyday events. And if we don't cultivate our faith, if we don't feed our faith, we will have no resources for more strenuous and difficult challenges. So God is for the everyday and the ordinary as well as for the dramatic. But it's in the everyday and the ordinary that our faith has to be nurtured. I often say to people on a Sunday, there's 2 things that a church service should have. One is encouragement for those who need it, because life is difficult. There are many dark valleys. There are many challenges. And I know that some of you sitting at home today will be experiencing the downside of life. It may be you're still going through bereavement, and that's difficult. Or someone you know and love is seriously ill, and you're worried and you're concerned. It may be that you just lost your job. You don't know where the next wage is going to come from, whether you're going to be able to pay all your bills. It can be 101 different existential issues that we're facing. And you need a word of encouragement. But the other word is challenge. We need encouragement, but we also need challenge, because the gospel is both. We love the words of Jesus found in Matthew 11:28. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." We're fond of the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd. He walks beside us in every dark valley." And there's plenty of words of encouragement in the scriptures. But there's also words of challenge. Who is it we follow? Well, it's Jesus. And Jesus knew dark days, but he also knew good days. He had words to say that were uplifting and inspiring. He had words to say that were challenging and provoking. and we need to hear both. A verse that I have been very fond of, or it has meant a lot to me over the years, and again, just recently I was challenged by it, is the Apostle Paul in Galatians 2:20. He says this: I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And this life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. What a marvellous verse. I've been crucified with Christ. Now, Paul was using it obviously as a metaphor. He didn't mean it literally. What he meant was the old Paul had died. Because remember, Paul was originally called Saul, and after his conversion was renamed Paul, and that often happened in the Bible. For example, Jacob becomes Israel because he wrestles with God. And there's a symbolism there. So Saul was dead, crucified, Paul was saying. And Paul was now alive. Saul was gone, Paul had arrived. And Paul was a new man, a new beginning, a fresh start, seeing things differently. I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the gospel is not just about something that happened 2,000 years ago. It's about the living, everyday presence and grace of the risen Christ in our hearts and in our lives. And that can bring encouragement when we need it. But it also brings challenge. And Galatians 2:20 is bringing that challenge out. Because Paul goes on to say, this life I live in the body. In other words, the here and now, this life, I live through faith in the Son of God, it's Jesus, who loved me and gave himself for me. In other words, Paul is saying, look, Jesus gave everything for us. In response, I want to give everything to him. Now, we can't all be like the Apostle Paul, but we can do our best. And the challenge of the gospel is to help us to focus on the fact that often there's a struggle within us. There's our self, the old self, that can just be concerned with what we're about. And there's the new self that God is trying to create and shape and mould in us. A self that is Christ-centred and looks out on the world in a different way, sees things in a different way. And there can be tension between these two things. And that is the Christian path. It's not easy. Being a follower of Jesus never is. But it's exciting. It's an adventure because God has done a marvellous thing in and through Jesus Christ. Easter is awesome. The cross and the resurrection and the beginning of a worldwide faith with a worldwide vision for today and for the future, and a glorious hope that God entrusts to us with a mission for us to share this with those who've not heard about it, and those who can be not only brought alive in that message, but be given hope and succour even in difficult times. So this is a great calling for all of us. It's not easy, but by the grace of God, we can respond to this. So this coming week, let's consider these things. If it's encouragement we need, ask God for that. He is with us. But if we're too comfortable and lukewarm in our faith, may God grant us the challenge to awaken to new possibilities and to be prepared to say, yes, Lord, today I will follow you, whatever it costs. May God grant us the grace to follow in the footsteps of our Master. Once again, thank you for watching and listening. God be with you all. Amen.